Next topic is displacement reaction. So I take activity 1.9. Take 3 iron nails and clean them by rubbing with the sandpaper. We have to take 3 iron nails and that you have to clean with the sandpaper. Two test tubes marked as A and B. In each test tube, take 10 ml of copper sulfate solution. So you have to take 3 iron nails and you have to take 2 test tubes. So named as the A and B. So in each test tube and A and B both test tube, you have to pour 10 ml of copper sulfate solution. Tie 2 iron nails with a thread and immerse them carefully in the copper sulfate solution. So you have to tie the nails like that. So you have to dip in a solution of copper sulfate solution. In test tube before about 20 minutes you have to immerse. Immerse means you have to dip in a copper sulfate solution. So test tube B for about 20 minutes in figure 8.1.8a. So this is the figure. So you have to, again this is the thread tied with the iron nails and dipped in the solution of copper sulfate solution about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, take out the iron nails from the copper sulfate solution. After 20 minutes, you have to remove the iron nails from the copper sulfate solution. Compare the intensity of the blue color of the copper sulfate solution in a test tubes A and B. So after that, the completion of the 20 minutes, you have to observe the color of the copper sulfate solution, blue color of the copper solution changes or any other changes into another color. So that we have to observe here. Also compare the color of the iron nails dipped in the copper sulfate solution with the one kept aside. So here 3 iron nails are taken here and 1 iron nail is kept aside here. So 1 iron nail is kept aside here and 2 iron nails are dipped in the copper sulfate solution. After 20 minutes you have to observe whether the solution changes its color and what is the color of the iron nail, and another is kept aside. So that you have to observe color of the iron nail and color of the copper sulfate solution. This is the activity. So here this again simplified, this is the again simplified activity. So this is the iron nail and this is the iron nail taken out from the copper sulfate solution. This is the normal nail and this is dipped in the copper sulfate solution. So why does the iron nail become brownish in color and the blue color of copper sulfate solution fades? Here the iron nail becomes a brownish color. So iron nail colors becomes the brownish color and the blue color becomes the blue color of the copper solution becomes faded, becomes light. So that blue color changes into blue fades and iron becomes a brownish color. So this is because of that taking place a chemical reaction. So this chemical reaction takes place in activity. So that is why the iron becomes a brownish color and blue color of the copper sulfate turns to fades. So here Fe means iron, means we have to take iron. So copper sulfate solution CuSO4, copper sulfate solution CuSO4. Iron is dipped in the copper sulfate solution, that will gives the ferrous sulfate. FeSO4 is called as the ferrous sulfate and Cu is called as the copper. So iron is dipped in the copper sulfate solution means so iron nails. Now you have to describe that nails means iron only. So that is you have taken iron Fe that is dipped in the copper sulfate solution and it gives the copper sulfate. Copper sulfate dipped in the copper sulfate, it will gives the ferrous sulfate plus copper is given out. In this reaction iron has displaced. In this reaction iron has displaced or removed another element. What is here? in this reaction iron has displaced or removed another element, copper, from copper sulfate solution. This reaction is known as the displacement reaction. What is a displacement reaction? The word itself tells displace. Displace means removing of the place from one another to the another. So here copper displacing the, here copper sulfate, copper displacing the position of copper sulfate, copper displacing its position from the copper sulfate solution. Instead copper, the iron will take place its position and copper will remains free. So this is called as the displacement reaction. What is in the reaction here? Copper sulfate displacing its position, and they will, instead, in place of copper, iron will takes place. So this is called as the displacement reactions. So here this is called as the displacement reaction. Here more reactive element displaces the lesser reactive element is called as the displacement reaction. So copper displaced by iron, so it's called as the displacement reaction. Another example of displacement example means, so Zn means zinc, copper sulfate, again ZnSO4 plus copper. Here again copper displaces and Zn comes in place, so that is so ZnSO4 plus Co. This is also displacement reaction. Another Pb, lead copper chloride, PbCl2, lead chloride plus copper. So again copper here displacing, instead of copper lead is comes in place of copper and forms the PbCl2, means copper lead chloride. So in the above reaction ZnSO4 zinc sulfate, and in iron SO4, so here copper is displacing. So zinc and lead are more reactive element than copper. They display copper from its compound. So why only copper is removing from the compound means because the copper is less reactive, because lead and zinc and iron are more reactive than copper. So that is why the copper is displaced by these elements like iron, zinc and lead. So zinc and lead are more reactive element than copper. They displace copper from its compounds. So from this activity we can call that, so what is decomposition, what is the displacement reaction means more reactive element displaces the less reactive element. What is a displacement reaction? More reactive element displaces the less reactive element are called as the displacement reaction. What is a displacement reaction? More reactive element displaces the less reactive element is called as the displacement reactions. Give one example means you can write from these three equations, one of them you have to write. So either you can write iron plus a copper sulfate solution, or a zinc copper sulfate solution, or lead copper chloride solution. You have to write from these three equations with the example. So what is a displacement reaction with example means you can write definition: more reactive element displaces the less reactive element. With example, one of them you have to write, means you will get definitely 2 marks. Next, double displacement reaction. So next, double displacement reaction. Activity 1.10. Take about 3 ml of sodium sulfate solution. We have taken which type of solution? Sodium sulfate solution in a test tube. In another test tube, take about 3 ml of barium chloride. So first you have taken the sodium sulfate and barium chloride. So barium chloride solution, mix 2 solutions. So what do you observe? So here we have taken the one type of solution is, so one sodium sulfate and another one is the barium chloride, and these 2 solutions are mixing with each other. So what we have observed means we will observe that a white substance which is insoluble in water is formed. So sodium sulfate and barium chloride are mixed with each other, that will forms the insoluble in water, that called as the white substance, that forms the white substance that is insoluble in water. This insoluble substance formed as known as the precipitate. So what here that insoluble substance in water, that is called as the insoluble substance in water, that is called as the precipitate. So what is precipitate? One more question. What is the precipitate means the insoluble substance formed in water is called as the precipitate. One more question. What is a precipitate means the insoluble substance formed in water is called as the precipitate. Any reaction that produces precipitate can be called as the precipitate reaction. What is precipitate reaction? Any reaction that produces the precipitate are called as the precipitation reaction. Again, one more question. What is precipitation reaction means the reaction in which precipitate produced means, that is called as the precipitation reaction. What is precipitate, or we can call that simply PPT. So we can call that precipitate. Instead of precipitate we can call it PPT. So that is the short form. The product are insoluble in water are called as the precipitate or a PPT. This is a simple one mark definitions. And what is double displacement reaction, and give the example means you can write this is the example. Na2SO4, this is the sodium sulfate and barium chloride, that will give the barium sulfate and NaCl, that is the common salt NaCl. What is here? Na2SO4, sodium sulfate, barium chloride, and that gives the barium sulfate and NaCl, that is called as the common salt sodium chloride. This is the reaction of double displacement reaction. So what causes this? The white precipitate of barium sulfate is formed by the reaction of when sodium sulfate and barium chloride is mixed with each other, that will produces the white precipitate. So that white precipitate is produced by the due to the reaction of sulfate and barium ions. So that is because of the barium ions and sulfate ions are reacting with each other, so that will forms the white precipitate of barium sulfate solution. The other product formed is sodium chloride. I already told that sodium common salt, that is sodium chloride, which remains in the solution. That sodium chloride remains in the solution. Such reaction in which there is an exchange of ions between the reactant are called as the double displacement reaction. Again, one more question, very important. What is a double displacement reaction means? Such a reaction or any reaction in which there is an exchange of ions. There is an exchange of ions between reactant are called as the double displacement reaction. What is double displacement reaction? So there is the reaction in which exchange of ions between reactant is called as the double displacement reaction. So you have to write a definition of double displacement reaction and example. Sodium sulfate react with Na2SO4 plus barium chloride BaCl2, that will give the BaSO4 plus 2NaCl, that will give the, this is the reaction. So NaSO4 plus BaCl2 and gives the BaSO4 plus NaCl. This is the double displacement reaction. You have to write definition with the chemical reaction. This is the reaction you have to write in exam. If it is asked means write the definition that in a reaction in which transfer of or exchange of ions between the reactant is called as the double displacement. Here sulfate ion and barium ions are exchanging, so that is called as the double displacement reaction. Exchange of ions in a reactant are called as the double displacement reaction, and how to write this equation. So that completes the question. So again, recall activity 1.2. What is activity 1.2 means? Where you have mixed the solution of lead nitrate and potassium iodide. What was the color of the precipitate formed? Can you name the compound precipitated? And that color is is called as the color is yellow, and precipitated is Pb potassium lead iodide. That what is the color of that compound? Yellow color, and precipitated Pbi2. Write the balanced chemical equation with the reaction. It is also double displacement reaction. So what is the activity here? Lead nitrate, PbNO3 plus potassium iodide, that will gives the Pbi2 plus 2KNO3. This is the chemical equation, and this is the PPT, and it is the, what is the color here? Yellow. Remember that, yellow. So what is the color? What is the color here? Yellow. And what is the compound here? Potassium, lead iodide and yellow colors. That is called as the precipitation. This is the activity 1.2, already studied in the first class. So next, oxidation and reduction. So again, very important for 1 mark question. What is oxidation or what is redox? What is reduction? That will ask for several times asked in exam. So remember that. Activity 1.11. Heat a china dish containing about 1 gram copper powder. So china dish containing what? Containing 1 gram of copper powder. What do you observe? The surface of copper powder becomes coated with black copper 2 oxide. So when copper powder is heated, that will turns which color? Black color. So because of the copper 2 oxide. Why this black color appears or formed on the substance? Means this is because oxygen is added to the copper. So this is because oxygen is added to the copper, and copper oxide is formed. Here question comes here, when copper is heated in a china dish, that will turns the copper oxide and its color becomes black because of the copper react with the oxygen in the air, and that will produce the copper oxide. That is why it will turns to the black color. So question arises here, why copper oxide turns black color? Because of the copper is reacting with the oxygen to form a copper oxide. Due to that only copper oxide having a black coat on it. This is the simple answer. So right, the question is like that, why copper oxide turns to black color? Means this is because oxygen is added to the copper and becomes copper oxide. This is simple answer you have to write. This is because oxygen is added to copper and copper oxide is formed, and you have to write also this chemical equation. Copper 2Co plus O2 gives to heat, that will give the 2Co, copper oxide. If hydrogen gas is passed over the heated material, this too we are passing hydrogen gas. This is the equation. 2 copper oxide plus we are passing the hydrogen gas. The black coating of the surface turns to brown. So this already it is having a black color, and when we pass the hydrogen gas to this solution, it will turns to the which type of color? So Cu plus it becomes water, and that the black color of the copper oxide turns to brownish color. That turns the brownish color. This is called as the reverse reaction. So this is called as the reverse reaction. This is the equation here. So here, if hydrogen gas is passed here, hydrogen gas is passed over this heated material copper oxide, the black color coating on the surface turns to brown. Now this is also already in the black. This hydrogen gas is passed to it, it will turns copper and H2O. So it's the called as the reverse reaction of this reaction. If a substance gains oxygen during a reaction, it is said to be oxidized. What is oxidation? So one more question, what is oxidation? In a reaction, substance gain oxygen during a reaction is called as the oxidation. If a substance gain oxygen during a reaction, it's said to be oxidized. So it's called as the oxidation reaction. Example, we can write, this is the, so here water, here hydrogen gains the oxygen from the reaction that from the copper oxide. Here is called as the oxidation. Here hydrogen is there, after gaining of the oxygen from the copper oxide it will turns the water. So here hydrogen gaining the oxygen, so it's called as the oxidation. So if a substance loses oxygen during a reaction, it is said to be reduced. Here copper losing the electron is called as the, sorry, losing the oxygen is called as the reducing. So in a reaction, one element gains the oxygen is called as the oxidizing. So in a reaction, one element loses the oxygen is called as the reduce. Simple one mark definition. What is oxidation and what is reduction reaction? Means one element gains the oxygen in a reaction is called as the oxidation reaction. That element that loses the oxygen in a reaction is called as the reducing agent. During the reaction 1.29, the copper to oxide is losing oxygen and being reduced. The hydrogen is gaining oxygen and being oxidized. In other words, one reactant gets oxidized while other gets reduced during a reaction. Such reactions are called as the oxidation redox reaction. So oxidation and redox reaction, or simply called as the redox reaction. Simple one more question, what is a redox reaction? Or means in a reaction one element getting the oxygen, another element losing the electrons. This type of reaction is called as the redox reaction. Both are taking place in single reaction are called as the redox. Here the word itself tells red for reduction and ox for oxidation reaction. So that is called as the redox reaction. One element losing the electron, one element gaining the electron are called as the redox reaction. One element gains the oxygen is called as the oxidation. One element loses the oxygen is called as the redox is called as the reduction reaction. Oxidation means gaining the oxygen, reduction means losing the oxygen is called as the oxidation and reduction reaction. What is the example of redox reaction? Means here again copper chloride, that is simple. So copper oxide reacting with hydrogen while giving the heat, that will oxygen will gains the oxygen will given to the hydrogen, that will becomes the water molecule, and copper loses the oxygen and that will give the simple copper, or the simplest compound. This is the called as the redox reaction. Simple, very simple questions, very simple answer for that. So in a reaction at a time, both gaining of the oxygen and removing of the oxygen taking place is called as the redox reaction. Simple. This is the example, copper oxide reacting with hydrogen, copper here losing the oxygen to the hydrogen. So both are taking in a reaction. So copper is called as the reduction and hydrogen is becomes to the water, that is called as the oxidizing agent. So this is the reduction agent, this is the oxidizing agent. This is simple, very simple and easy topic. Some other examples of redox reaction. So zinc ZnO plus carbon, that will give the zinc plus carbon monoxide. We can call that simple. So what is here reduction and what is the oxidizing agent? Means you can call that correct. Your guess is correct. Here carbon is gaining the oxygen and zinc is losing the oxygen. So your guess 100% correct. So this means you understood the topic of oxidation and reduction. Means again this in this reaction also you can tell. So manganese oxide, so hydrochloric acid manganese chloride and H2O and chlorine. Here we can call that manganese is again your guess is correct. Manganese is losing the electron and hydrogen is gaining the electron, sorry, gaining the oxygen. So hydrogen here gains the electron, sorry, hydrogen gains the water molecules to form the hydrogen forms the water molecules by taking the oxygen from the manganese dioxide, and from hydrochloric acid loses the hydrogen, and that will becomes the chlorine gas. This is the examples of redox reaction. It's very simple examples. In a reaction 1.31, carbon is oxidized to carbon monoxide and zinc is reduced to Zn. Already I told that. And HCl is oxidized to Cl2, whereas MnO2 is reduced to MnCl2. Correct? Here hydrogen takes the one oxygen from the manganese dioxide and it will becomes the water molecule, and chlorine will liberated and manganese becomes manganese chloride. From the above examples, we can say that if a substance gain oxygen or loses hydrogen during a reaction, it is known as the oxidizer. So what is oxidized? We can say the definition of oxidizing in another way. Substance gain oxygen and loses the hydrogen during a reaction is called as the oxidation. And if a substance loses the oxygen or gains the hydrogen during a reaction, it is called as the reduced reaction. So what is this statement like that? This is simple. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and this is the right hand side and this is left hand side. We have interchange. So again, left is right, and so you have to write one is in place and one right in place. So that also too. So same definition. What is here? Have changed only position of the element. So first we have told that the gaining of the oxygen is called as the oxidation and losing of the oxygen is called as the reduction. Correct? If gaining of the oxygen means there is a losing of the hydrogen. If the gaining of the hydrogen means losing of the oxygen. This is simple. Very simple. Don't complicate. So simple. Remember that losing of the oxygen is called as the reduction, and losing of the oxygen means gaining of the hydrogen. If the gaining of the oxygen means losing of the hydrogen, this is called as the oxidation and reduction reaction. This is very important. 1 mark questions. Remember that. Following that activity 1.1, that magnesium is reacting with so where magnesium ribbon burns with the white dazzling flame in air and changes into white substance, that is the magnesium oxide. So magnesium being oxidized or a reduction reaction, we have to write this is the reaction. Correct? So you have to write 2MgO. Correct? This is called as the, so here magnesium gaining the oxygen, this is called as the oxidation reaction. So why oxidation means here Mg is taking the oxygen from the or combining with the oxygen, that will gives the oxidation reaction. This is called as the oxidation reaction. This is simple activity 1.